Hello, everyone. Today we're going to talk about the Chicano movement. I know what you're all thinking, Cesar Chavez, but the Chicano movement encompasses so much more than that, and today we're going to tell you all about it. The Chicano movement was a social and political movement led by people of Mexican descent in the 60s and 70s in the US. It was inspired by prior acts of resistance in the 40s and 50s and the Black Power movement that was going on at the time. The term Chicano had been used as a classist and racist slur, but it became a term of empowerment and pride. There was major pressure on people to assimilate into white American culture, but the Chicano movement sought to celebrate and protect Chicano culture. The Chicano movement and the Black Power movement had many of the same goals and views, and organizations from both movements often worked alongside each other to create change. There were dozens of groups and organizations working to empower people of Mexican descent in various ways. Some of the major goals of the movement were to end discrimination and negative stereotypes against people of Mexican descent, expand workers' rights, expand educational equality, restore land grants, and expand political equality. We will discuss some of these goals in further depth.
One of the things they fought for was the workers' rights. Farm workers in the 19th century had to fight for their rights and are the reason that the farm workers today have what they have. Back then, they worked in places that had deadly chemicals, not enough food or water for everyone, bad shelter, sexual harassment, and all while receiving low pay wages. Cesar Chavez came from a migrant family and also faced the trouble of not getting the education he wanted. He ended up having to stop going to school in order to help take care of the family. In 1962, he and activist Dolores Huerta founded the National Farm Workers Association. Together, they led nonviolent work strikes and even fasted for weeks. Even though all the protests they had were peaceful, some were still arrested and faced violence from others. One of the mottos they took in was the Viva la Causa, long live the cause. When the U.S. government ended the Bracero program in 1965, the first Great Boycott started. That program allowed the Mexicans to work in the U.S. while being under short contracts. The United Farm Workers Union got many national headlines, gained labor contracts with higher wages and improved working conditions, praising the Chicano movement. Another thing they fought for was the educational equality. The civil rights period was a time where the students took the opportunity to express their feelings and roles in American society. Education was important to them because without it, they felt they couldn't be equal as the other people in the society who could fight for their rights with education. Two of the main student groups that were involved in the educational fight are the United Mexican American Students and the Mexican American Youth Association. They were fighting for social justice and better education opportunities. The districts wouldn't allow Mexican history to be taught in the schools. The students couldn't speak Spanish, and when they were in school, the teachers would often try to get them to drop out and to do labor work. In response, students, teachers, parents, and activists began to see what else they could do in order to prove their point and fight for their rights. In March 1968, the East Los Angeles walkout occurred. From March 1st through the 8th, around 15,000 students walked out of their classroom in protest because of the organization of the groups who together formed the Educational Issues Coordinating Committee, also known as the EICC. 13 members of the EICC were arrested following the walkout. One member in particular, who was kept in jail longer than the other 12, was fired from his teaching job, which was later given back. After the walkout, the school district still declined the request, saying they didn't have enough funds. But the committee still fought for the students by being their voice for any of their concerns. When the school district finally decided to listen, they were given a list of things that needed to be changed. That list included better options for curriculum changes, bilingual education, and hiring of Mexican American administrators. Some of the wins the movement had was that the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare in the U.S. Supreme Court decided that it is unlawful to keep students who couldn't speak English from getting education. and later Congress passed the Equal Opportunity Act of 1974, which resulted in the implementation of more bilingual education programs in the public schools.
With the signing of the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo in 1848, the Mexican-American War was ended. Mexicans who chose to remain on territory ceded to the U.S. were promised citizenship and the right to their property, language, and culture. Unfortunately, though, in most cases, Mexicans in America found themselves living as second-class citizens after land grants that were promised after the war were denied by the U.S. government, which left many land grant descendants impoverished. But during the Chicano movement, some Chicanos tried to help Mexican Americans take back some of the land that they believed to constitute as their ancestral homeland. Ruiz Lopez Tejerina would be one of these people. Tejerina would argue that the annexation of Mexico land in the 1800s was illegal and led a 3-day march from Albuquerque, New Mexico to the capital of Santa Fe, where Tejerina gave the governor a petition calling for an investigation of the Mexican land grants, as they believed that the land confiscated by Anglo settlers was in violation of the 1848 treaty. Unfortunately, the petition was unsuccessful, but the appeal served as a catalyst for Tejerina's interest in land grants, and just as he perceived in the historical dispossession of Chicanos and Latinos. He would go on to establish La Alianza Federal de Mercedes, Federal Alliance of Land Grants, and fight for Mexican Americans' rights to the land which they felt was rightfully theirs.
Because of the Chicano movement, the Raza Unida Party was formed. This political party focused on the Chicanos across the nation and was a big success for them. The Chicanos had many political wins, like the 1954 win against Hernandez versus Texas, which made sure Mexican Americans had equal protection under the 14th Amendment on the Constitution. This ruling made it to be known that the 14th Amendment applied to all racial and ethnic groups. This win broadened the civil rights laws to also include Hispanics and other non-whites in America. The movement lives on today by the success we see with our farmers and the fair treatment of the workers. This movement was a big success for not only Mexican Americans across the nation, but as a whole. There was so much this movement gained. The Chicanos are now in our classroom teaching our kids, but not only teaching our kids, but also teaching them about this powerful movement and the success that was made. We also have Mexican Americans as some of our elected officials making positive changes to our country to better our nation as equals. I think looking back, it's just such a successful win for this movement and all that it's overcome.
Okay, so our project is this poster, which displays the logo Viva la Casa and also has the eagle on it, which was a big symbol for the farm workers. And they used it on a lot of their protests and their flags. So we have the eagle flying over a field and the sun symbolizing a new day. And that concludes our project. Thank you for listening.